Right, I'm recording. Anna, hit record on that button there. The podcast is back. The haters couldn't stop us. And so on and so forth. Hello and welcome back to the Cine Skinny for the first time in 2025. We are crammed into...
What happened to your mic stand?
It's a long story.
Okay.
We are in the delightful confines of ground floor, the EHFM studio here in glorious Leith. It's me, Peter Simpson, with Jamie Dunn.
Hello.
Anna Heat-Barrows.
Hi.
And Ellie Robertson.
Hello.
Yes, we've had a lovely festive break. We've watched some films and we're going to talk about them. It's very kind of like what we've been watching, parentheses, full episode this time. We're talking about some nice things we watched, some things that we want to watch. Just a cool, vibey one. A vibey, fun one to start. Anna Heat's doing what I can only describe as silent response on an audio-only format.
It's been so long.
Anna Heat just like politely nodding and being like...
It was because you were looking at me so intently, like I was ruining the fun.
Now, do you think, Anna Heat, and I don't want this to come across, I don't want this to leave us in bad odour in the first minute and a half of the podcast for the year, but do you think maybe I was looking at you intently because I was trying to get a response out of you? Again, on this audio format that we're currently...
I couldn't read.
All we've done so far is explain why we're here, and then this, which follows directly on from the explanation of why we're... You know what? It's all good.
Why am I being attacked?
We're having a fun time. The podcast has changed. A happy new year to everybody. So yeah, we're having a great time. Citation needed. Anna He's not. That's nearly up to the... It says intro 5 minutes on the plan. I don't think we can do another 3 of this. So yeah, we're going to talk about some films. We're going to talk about Nosferatu. We're going to talk about new Wallace and Gromit. We're going to talk about Babygirl, which Anna Heat was a big fan of. So that'll be fun when we get to that. So just remember, stick in it for long enough that you get to talk about Babygirl for 10 minutes. But first things first, we've some business up top to attend to, which is we have to promote our screening that we're doing with GFT's Queer Cinema Sundays. We are showing Xavier Dolan's Matthias and Maxime, or Matthias et Maxime in the original Française.
That would be A. Isn't that Spanish?
Come see. So yeah, Matthias and Maxime, Xavier Dolan... A very good film that I have not seen, but I've been told by Anna Heat that it's very, very good.
It is very, very good. Who has seen it here?
I've seen it. Why were you so keen to show it? I thought you were the one of the yes votes.
No, I was just happy to see pals winning. Okay. Anna Heat had been trying to put on the screening for literally months. I was like, I'm not going to stand in the way of a good time.
Film screening. Peter couldn't not say yes.
Yeah. To the queer woman of colour.
What can I say? They'd boxed me into a corner. I didn't have a choice. So yeah, that screening is on Sunday, the 26th of January at 2 p.m. We'll be showing the film, and then we'll be having a discussion about some of the great queer filmmakers of the 21st century and the kind of ever-changing face of queer cinema. Jamie, you're looking at me again.
Something like that. We haven't actually discussed it, but well on those lines.
Yeah. Cool. So that's that. You've been here for the planning meeting.
It really feels like our communication as a group has fallen apart in the last 5 minutes.
We don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
We are going to talk.
We have been on holiday.
It's like we've had a big fight over Christmas and we're refusing to acknowledge it.
But instead, what the actual situation is that we just were completely uncommunicative with each other over Christmas. And we're slowly getting back to it now. So yes, you can get tickets for Matthias and Maxime at glasgowfilm.org. The Glasgow Film Theatre box office.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, come and join us. It'll be a grand old time. And actually, if you want...
I was going to say, and I think it might be the official Scottish premiere. Or the UK premiere, even.
Oh my God.
Because this film didn't get a theatrical release.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So I don't think describe it like that, but I think it might be the Scottish premiere anyway.
Oh my God, our power.
This is a film that you have not seen. Don't give us... often people will be like, I've seen that film. You, the public, have not seen this film. GFT, 26th of January, 2 p.m. We'll all be there. We're probably going to go for a pint afterwards, so we'll have a lovely time. So that'll be nice. Anyway, let's move on to the meat of the podcast, what everyone has been watching over the Christmas and New Year break. So, should we just do Nosferatu first?
But aren't we doing what we've watched?
No, I think that you were mistakenly using those words, even though we're not doing the segment, what you've been watching.
Yes, I think we'll do all this live and I'll cut it out later. you rejoin us. We're about to talk, before we get into the meat of the podcast, we're going to talk about what we've been watching over Christmas. There will be fuller conversation about some films shortly, but Anna Heat has actually, as she said, I've actually been watching some stuff over Christmas and I want to tell you all about it. So Anna Heat, the floor is yours.
Yes, so I've decided that I, instead of sitting catatonic in front of like naughty sitcoms, I'm going to get back into my film era where I watch films. I'm very excited about this.
A bold move.
I know. I think it might fix my life. So I've actually watched quite a lot over the last few weeks. I watched I'm Not There, mostly because I think A Complete Unknown looks kind of shite. But I was like, that other Bob Dylan film, which is the one where like 7 different people played like versions of him. And you have Cate Blanchett with that really cool curly hair. I was like, that would probably be better. And it was better. I did realize halfway through that I did download it as a teenager and just watch Heath Ledger's sex scenes.
Start as you mean to go on. In your film watching and in this, the year of our Lord 2025.
But I had never seen the whole thing. So that was really good. I watched Rashomon. I've been going to the Cameo a lot to see their like rep screenings. So I watched Rashomon, which I thought was good, but I didn't think it was like one of the best films I've ever seen, which is kind of how it's talked about a lot. But I did like it. I watched The Last Picture Show last night, which also did not blow me away. But I did really like it, but it didn't blow me away. But I love Paper Moon, so I think that's maybe my Bogdanovich like special space in my heart. I watched Boogie Nights, which is the Paul Thomas Anderson one about the 70s porn industry, which he made when he was 26, which was so upsetting. Yeah, and some other things as well. Oh, the Robbie Williams Monkey film, which was fun, but could have been weirder. Was actually kind of middle of the road, I thought. But yeah, I'm just very proud of all the films I've seen.
You've done it.
I have done it.
Turning over a new leaf.
Yeah.
And then using that leaf at work.
Yeah.
Expertly done. Jamie, did you watch anything particularly noteworthy over Christmas?
I did. I think my highlight was A Different Man. Which is one that just like, I don't know why we missed it on the podcast, but it was so good. Well, it's Sebastian Stan plays a man who has a sort of genetic disorder which creates these kind of growths, which gives him a kind of deformity. But he's an actor, and he gets this opportunity to take this kind of, it's a bit like The Substance actually. It's like he gets an opportunity to take a drug which ends up working, and it removes his kind of tumours and things and his growths. But then he just goes and lives a really ordinary life. But then he finds a man who has the exact same condition, who is living a much more joyful life than him, and it gets really meta because he starts he auditions for a play about him, written by his next door neighbour who he really fancied, and it's like really dark because she had a completely different look at the relationship. It reminded me a lot of like Charlie Kaufman actually. So if you like Being John Malkovich or something like that, it's really kind of twisty, kind of meta, surreal. Also like, I don't want to put people off here, but also like really good early Woody Allen when it get kind of really kind of like strange and surreal. Really funny, smart movie. And like my jaw was dropped. It was like so good. I watched it on New Year's Eve because I couldn't go out on New Year's Eve because the weather was so bad. But yeah, it was like a really fun time. And then like I've been seeing all the rep stuff at the cinema. So I saw Fanny and Alexander again. I saw Spirited Away that came back. I'm trying to see all these Ghiblies that come back. I hadn't seen Spirited Away in 20 years, and it was like watching a new film. I'd forgot so much about it. And it is like such a surreal movie, but it's like scene by scene, it is just one of the best looking films ever made. So really good to see that on the big screen. Yeah, and I've just been catching up with all the big Oscar contenders as well. So the Brutalist and things like that, which I don't know if we'll get a chance to talk about. But
did you see the Brutalist?
I did see the Brutalist. I really liked it. So maybe we'll get a chance to speak on the podcast, hopefully. I did see A Complete Unknown, better than I expected.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I would say Timmy's singing is good. Mm-hmm. His impression of Bob Dylan's not very good, but there's a lot of singing. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, well then, maybe I will like it.
Man, things are really clipping along today. We've seen so many films. We're changing our mind about things. We're learning so much. We're redeeming Woody Allen. You can't predict what's going to happen on this podcast in the year of our Lord 2025. He said early Woody Allen. Fair play to him. I'm just trying to get Jamie in trouble. Ellie Robertson, did you see anything particularly noteworthy over the Christmas break?
I didn't see anything like hot off the presses. I was really ill over Christmas. So I was like completely bedridden, really miserable. It was worse than COVID. It was like the flu, but it was just really, really hard. And I was like feeling really bad about it because all my family had it as well. Because you see all see each other at Christmas. And I was like, oh no, everyone's really, really ill. How could it be worse than this. So we watched 28 Days Later, which I'd not seen, I think, since I was a kid, but because the trailer for 28 Years Later came out, which we're going to be talking about later on, like films we're looking forward to this year, and that looks really, really fun. Decided to rewatch 28 Days Later. That's really the most substantive thing I'd seen. Like, I think that as a kid, I was aware, but couldn't really intuit the kind of like political undertones of 28 Days Later. I mean, it's so weird because it's somewhat unintentional. Like, they do obviously have this whole thing where like the disease has been made by monkeys being forced to watch footage of riots somehow. And the sheer scale of like London completely abandoned has like these really interesting like 21st century political ramifications, because 9/11 happened while they were filming it, which is so hard to like wrap your head around. That like they took inspiration from like the sort of things they were seeing in the news to furnish like the wall of leaflets of missing people that oh my god, I'm blanking on his name, on Cillian Murphy, that he finds. And just, yeah, like this sort of like presence of terror, this like aftermath of terror that wound up being incredibly kind of like prophetic and prescient for its time, and is still really relevant today. Again, like I say, especially having been through a pandemic, just like, I don't know, it really hits. It's a really, really good film, and I really, really enjoyed it, and that was probably like the most interesting thing I watched that wasn't any of the films we're about to talk about.
Delightful. And the only thing that I watched that wasn't something we're about to talk about, I had a very strange spell of watching multiple Paul Dano films in quite a short space of time. But the one that is probably worth a shout out that is less well known of the three that I watched is Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson biopic. Oh. So it's like a two-hander Brian Wilson biopic where John Cusack plays later post-breakdown Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, and Paul Dano plays a Pet Sounds era musical savant in a turtleneck Brian Wilson, and it flits back and forth between these two things, and it actually does a really good thing that we've been talking a lot in the office and various places about musician biopics and how they often follow a very set formula and they have to show you the true tragedy in somebody's life. One of the great things about Love and Mercy is it cuts between like a guy who was clearly troubled but seemed to be doing like having these amazing creative moments, and then to someone who is like a shell of their former self. But it doesn't show you the bit in the middle, which was like the truly terrible thing, that kind of the bridging moment between the end of his kind of like Pet Sounds time when he's starting to like really struggle and his modern self. So I think there's something to be said in this new quarter century for filmmakers not treating you like an absolute fucking idiot. But that's just me, I suppose. And then I could sing a bit of the Beach Boys to cut to the next segment, but we're making a lot of changes in 2025, but me learning how to sing is not one of them, unfortunately.
One thing about the film I remember being really good is like it's actually good about how you make music. Like
there's some incredible scenes of
like how they build up a song.
Yeah, of Brian Wilson doing like making Good Vibrations and Wouldn't It Be Nice in the studio, and telling all these session musicians to do things that seem like they don't make any sense, and then they do them and like, damn it, that Brian Wilson. It's like, you know what these are? These are good vibrations. Yeah. They look straight at the camera and they high-five each other. So yes, Love and Mercy is very, very good. We all had a lovely time over Christmas. Let's talk in more detail about some films we've seen that people can go and watch in the cinemas. That's the end of that section. He wants to suck your blood. That's basically the plot of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlok, a mysterious fella who lives in a big house. That's right, Count Orlok, famously of this parish, a man whose name that we do not know and don't care to know. Nicholas Hoult has to go... you know I'm right. Nicholas Hoult is a young man who has to leave behind his darling wife to go and speak to this man and sell him a house. And Lily Rose Depp plays the travelling estate agent's wife, who is haunted by visions of a spooky man from the past who comes to her in dreams at night, to quote that Carly Rae Jepsen song. The rest of the lyrics I can't remember. So this is Robert
a rich boomer buying a second home.
Essentially, yeah. It's absolute rocket fuel for NIMBYs, but it is so it's Robert Eggers' latest attempt to complete the one-shot speed run of various different kinds of historical horror. He did it with folky stuff. He did it with Norsey stuff. Can he do it with the Dracule? Ellie, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay.
Because I feel like you maybe felt I undersold the story when I said it's about some old lad. But also, there is a key detail. And anyone who hasn't seen Nosferatu, be warned, we are going to spoil a key piece of production design.
Is it the moustache?
I'm going to ask you, Ellie, what about that moustache there?
Right, everybody is like freaking out about the mustache. I didn't hate it. I didn't have problems with it. I thought that it worked kind of well with the use of like darkness throughout the film, because even like well lit shots, they always have like a little streak of blackness somewhere, whether it's the front door of their house is black or the horse is black, like even like no matter what there's. So I think that, you know, there was a reason for it. As well, the fact that I think that the true reason for the mustache is that like Bill Skarsgård wouldn't look as scary if he looked more like Bill Skarsgård. And the mustache helps make it look like not Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, you're thinking, is that Bill Skarsgård or is that Waluigi?
Like, this is the thing about...
Bill Skarsgård's famously looks scary. He's Pennywise with, you know?
I know, but he's just sort of...
But how much scarier would Pennywise be if he had a moustache? I'm in my troublemaker era, and I don't care.
I would say arguably he's one of the hotter Skarsgårds when he doesn't have shit on his face.
He is very, very good looking, but he's also like kind of alien looking. He's got that big eyes, big cheekbones. He's very extreme looking.
He's now kind of like Doug Jones, where he will be a monster and he likes getting put up in loads and loads of makeup and like just sort of filling a role. So Nosferatu is a really like, it's a film that's sort of split into two halves, and in that first half, Count Orlok, like literally the more sort of clear-cut horror of Nicholas Hoult going to this castle and getting lost in it and encountering him for the first time, which is really the first half of the film. He's like a force of nature. Like, this is when the mise-en-scène is just like going off the wall with all this like incredible like gloomy atmosphere. The sound design of like the closing doors of the castle and like animal noises in the distance. And then when we meet Orlok, he's always obscured in darkness. He always has this big sort of like gravelly voice that really like echoes throughout. And in the second half, things are very different. We're back in, is it Visborg is the town? And it's about all of our heroes kind of coming together, as is in Dracula, to like repel the evil that has plagued them. And in that half, I feel like Count Orlok feels much more like an ordinary character who interfaces with the characters regularly rather than like a force of nature. And that's when the illusion was lost on me. Like, I loved the first half of this film. I was just so interested in what it was doing. I thought it was really spooky, really atmospheric. I didn't like The Northman, Egger's last film, and I felt that was more of a step for him into a bigger production value, a bigger sort of sense of scale than the claustrophobic Lighthouse or Witch, and for bigger audiences as well. And that's still the case here. It's still very much the same in Nosferatu. It's a more conventional story structure, and it's an adaptation of a story that more people know, like Hamlet in The Northman. But I still feel like there was lots of really interesting Egger stuff going on, and I felt like when I saw it with a group of people, when we came out, everyone was talking about the different things they picked up from it. People liked it or disliked it for different reasons, but there's lots of subtext and symbolism that I feel like does make it a really interesting adaptation where Eggers has put some of his own ideas in. And I really liked just the set dressing and the vibe of it. The performances were incredible. I've not seen Lily Rose Depp in a lot, but I feel like she was doing a great job at like bouncing off the walls and like really kind of bringing a lot of energy to this character. And yeah, like Bill Skarsgård I thought looked like a decent Orlok. Didn't hate the mustache. I think he probably would have looked quite weird without it. But hey, that's me. Some people hate it.
I hated the mustache.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid.
Well, the thing is, what's scary about a vampire? The thing that's scary about the vampire is their mouth. It's the blood, it's the teeth. And if you can't see that shit, like, who cares? It's like, it looks silly.
I think he also looked like, what is that Jim Carrey film where he has like the
Dr. Robotnik.
Sorry.
Yeah. And with a little bit of the Pringles man thrown in as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When his head just appears out of the darkness, and it's like once he pops, he cannot stop.
Yeah.
Nosferatu this January.
There are tons of costume choices that I like way more than the mustache. There's the first scene where we meet Willem Dafoe, who is the sort of professor. He's like in his home and he's wearing this little like sort of pajama fez thing with a tassel, and I was like, oh, I really hope he's wearing that the whole time, but he's not.
Willem Dafoe's dressed as the Silent Night Hippo.
Yeah. And
Nosferatu's
Nicholas Hoult, when he goes on his journey to the castle, is wearing a wee bonnet. And it's a wee bonnet that looks exactly like the bonnet worn by the original guy in the Silent Nosferatu. It's the exact same costume, which is a cool little detail.
See, this is the thing. Eggers is really good at that details, and it's undeniably a well-made film. But I just think, what's the point of making this if you're not going to change it? I think it just sticks too close to the original. And the thing he does change, how Orlok looks, is really bad. It's just a bad move. Like, I don't know. And then clearly they know it's bad, because why have they hidden it so much from audiences? Like, I think a vampire has to be two things. has to be scary, it has to be sexy, or ideally both. And this is not scary or sexy. It's like, that's the whole point of Dracula. Or, I mean, I know the original Orlok is not sexy. He's like a little creepy guy. But he was like, but you know, like...
Some people like that.
Yeah, why not both?
I mean, rat boys are in, I guess.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So, yeah, make him a
OG rat boy.
Exactly. So, like, but you have to
To be
pick
fair,
something.
you would see that moustache in like pubs in Leith on a Friday
Oh,
night,
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
you?
yeah. It just wouldn't be attached to everything else.
No, that's true.
I think
It'd
it's
be
the
like
issue.
if Orlok turned up in a Carhartt jacket, you'd be like, I know that guy.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
got a show on the radio station
He
in the
writes
studio.
poetry
yeah.
about rent controls.
Yeah.
We all know that guy.
Yeah, I just thought it was a strange choice. When there is lots of good stuff, and I agree that all the actors are good. I think Nicholas Holt's quite a good screen queen. I like all the stuff in the castle.
Yeah.
It's actually quite good because like, usually the thing about, well, whatever character you're going to call it, is it Harkin in the book, and then, was it Harkin here? I can't remember.
It's Hatter here.
Hatter here and Harkin in the book. You know, you should not go in there. Like, Dracula's obviously crazy, but the fact is he's like under a spell. He's like almost like, does a very good job of like convincing you that he's almost possessed by the guy. He like will pass out and find like nibbles in his neck, and he's, what happened there? So like, this is all really good. But yeah, but I wish there was more of that kind of homoerotic stuff. It becomes quite more very generic, very kind of like just like a straightforward gothic adaptation, and that was really disappointing for Eggers when he does usually do things quite differently. So that, yeah, I was really disappointed by this, I think, in the end.
I'm on Jamie's side. I agree with him. I thought it was like a little kind of middle of the road. I think the one sort of slightly interesting thing that it did was taking like the kind of Dracula story, the vampire story, which is really, I think, at its heart concerned with, like, it's around fears of female sexuality, and kind of rooting it in kind of 19th century narratives of like female hysteria. I think that was quite interesting, that Lily Rose's character is very clearly, the way that people react to her is kind of this disbelief almost, or this kind of, like, yeah, she's not believed because she's acting in this hysterical way.
She's a wacky lady.
She's a wacky lady.
And it's also like she's conjured him or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
her
yeah,
sexuality is like...
Exactly. Her sexuality is
brings them
dangerous,
there.
but her sexuality also makes her crazy, and that's kind of how people see it. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But otherwise, I thought it looked really good, but it felt slightly emotionally or narratively flat to me. And I did not like Bill Skarsgård's performance, I have to say. I thought the moustache was silly, and I thought he sounded like the Count from Sesame Street.
Yes, he did.
And neither of
He
those
will
things-
visit you on 3 nights. 1. Ha ha ha.
Exactly. I was like, why are we doing this? This is so stupid. And it was one of those, I think the whole problem with that character and how they conceptualized that character was there was no horror to it, because we saw everything. You see his face, you hear his voice. There is nothing that's like in the shadows and unknown. And they keep having fucking shadows everywhere. And it's like, okay, babe, we get it. But there is nothing hidden about the character. And I think good horror works when there's, something that you feel is being withheld from you, and that's what makes it scary. And he was just too in my face, and I was like, girl, like, you're not scary.
My personal,
Why are you here?
My personal take on it was that it was a decent time at the movies.
Yeah.
It wasn't scary. Like, it wasn't particularly too much of anything, but it was like a nice time at the cinema.
I kind of wish more people were on Willem Dafoe's level. He seemed to be having fun with it. He's like, he's playing the kind of like the Van Helsing's type character, and he really hams it up. But nobody else is really having fun. It's like everybody's playing it very straight. Like Aaron Taylor Johnson was so bad.
Yeah,
like, every
he was
scene
not
he's in-
great.
Disappeared. I didn't even really register.
Yeah.
I was impressed with how kind of with Ralph Fiennes's character, just because like he's obviously such an imposing presence and has been in previous Eggers films in like the Witch. But yeah, he's also like kind of likes playing monsters, like in The Green Knight, and he's in a couple episodes of Game of Thrones and stuff like that. But he's like, I kind of was impressed by how much he is like a quite, I don't know, like respectable kind of stuffy doctor, which seemed like a role. But I agree with the statement that Willem Dafoe gave, which was that the best co-stars of the film were the 2000 live rats. Like, I did feel in the second half that I was sort of flagging and I wasn't as interested, and I feel like that's where, because like, yeah, like they've used the kind of mystery of what's going to happen or what Orlok will be or what's going on, and that's out there. So I wasn't as engaged in the second half when it was just a simple fight for good and evil, but I was looking forward to at least one scene with 2,000 live rats.
Although even that annoyed me, because this is where I think Eggers gets a bit weird, because like that doesn't really happen. You don't take the sea to go from Transylvania to Germany. Like, I don't.
I was like, why is he on a boat?
Yeah, like it makes sense when it was
You're in the Schengen area.
It made sense in Dracula when it's in England, but like, what the hell? It's like probably 100 miles by road. Why would you how would you even do it? So I don't know. That annoyed me as well.
Robert Eggers' lack of understanding of the Schengen Common Travel Area. Has it sunk his film? We'll find out when we do our letterboxd scores. Now, Jamie, out of 5.
Like 3.
Cool. Anahi?
3.
Ellie?
Give it maybe a 4.
Cool. I would also give it a 3. I think it's a decent time at the pictures. What I will say is it's very, very dark, and the quality of projection in this country, I tell you, in this, the year of our Lord 2025, I shouldn't be able to see big red marks from the fire exits.
Did you go to Cineworld?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
It was wild.
It did look like there was blood pouring down the screen, but not even in a good way.
No.
That's wild.
Piss poor. But anyway, that's enough of me bad-mouthing Cinema. Nosferatu remains in the cinemas and in IMAX. So if you want to see it in IMAX, if you really want to see that mustache, you pull up to an IMAX screening of Nosferatu, you're fucking looking at that mustache. Next up, another film that's come out in the last few days and that was, I know for a fact, enjoyed by one member of the panel. Yes, so Babygirl is the new film by Helena Rain, a high-powered CEO puts her career and family on the line when she begins a torrid affair with her much younger intern. The intern is Harris Dickinson, the CEO is Nicole Kidman, Antonio Banderas is the husband of the CEO. Those aren't my words, they're the words of the About panel on Google when you search Babygirl 2024 watch film. So, Anahi, you gave this 5 stars, the most stars you can give something, in the skinny magazine where we all work. Why did you do that?
I really love this
Brackets
film.
non-confrontational.
I love this film. I saw this film in Venice. There was really not that much that was good at Venice, and this felt like such a breath of fresh air. So yeah, like you said, it's about a kind of high-powered CEO, kind of Jeff Bezos, like very girl bossy vibes. But we don't really interrogate her relationship to capitalism. And she...
Because there's more important, sexy things to be getting on with.
Exactly. And she is married, very, like, supposedly happily married to Antonio Banderas. The film starts and ends with a sex scene, and specifically, like, an orgasm or a lack of orgasm, which is really interesting. And, yeah, she's supposedly very happily married to him. She has these 2, like, daughters, children, and her life seems to be going really, really well. And then a new batch of interns come, and Harris Dickinson is one of them, and he likes to tell her what to do in a sexy way. And he recognizes in her that that is what she wants, and she is deeply unable to ask for it. I just think this film is so fucking interesting. When it came out, and obviously no one had seen it because I think it showed for the first time at Venice, we were all convinced that Harris Dickinson would be the Babygirl, which felt kind of subversive, I suppose. But I think there's actually something really subversive about this woman who is older, who is the boss, who is, like, you know, who has so much, like, power and control in so many ways, wanting this relationship that is a very, like, sub-dom relationship. And it's not in the way that these things often are filmed, where it's just, like, a little bit sexy, like a kind of 50 Shades of Grey, oh my god, I'll tie you up. Like, it's really kind of going into ideas of, like, control and kind of humiliation and how consent plays around that. But I just think this is such an interesting film because you can never quite tell who has power. So there's this one scene where she's like, I can't do, you know, like, this is awful, like, I could get you fired. He's like, I could get you fired, like, with, like, a phone call. There's, like, this gender thing that's going on between them, but then there's also a class thing, and then there's also the sub-dom relationship itself. And it kind of shows how, kind of within, I think, sexual discourse these days, because ideas of, like, consent and power have become so paramount in kind of good ways, the way that we've come to think of it is in such a binary way of just trying to determine who has power and who is exploiting who. And we're just trying to find the answer to that, to say whether a sexual relationship is good or bad. And this film is so clever and funny because it just refuses to do that. Like, at any turn, you never quite know and you're always like destabilized as to whom is actually in control and who is saying yes to what. I just think it's so like intelligent filmmaking. It's sexy. He's hot. It's just like, I don't know. I just felt really like thrilled by it. I was like, fuck yeah. Like this is the kind of film we should be making. Felt very like Secretary, I imagine would have felt like at its time. Felt like it was, kind of interceding on contemporary sexual discourse in a really interesting way. I really liked it.
Nice. Jamie, you also saw this film. And what did you think?
Yeah, I do love the first 30 minutes. Like, I think that you're right, when that power play that's happening where Harris Dickinson's character somehow magically recognises, like, the first moment he meets her, he recognises that she needs this kind of like a man to tell her what to do, especially like a man with less power than her to tell her what to do. There's some sort of like, it's to do with the power as much as the sex. That is really interesting, and it's and the way that kind of plays out all the way up to their first kind of proper meeting at this kind of like seedy motel room or hotel, which is a really funny, sexy, kind of sweet scene. It's like it plays out in such an interesting way. It has such a lovely rhythm. That whole scene, I think, could have been a whole film. It's like so well choreographed and so well kind of acted and performed. But I really think the film just doesn't know where to go after that kind of peak. It just doesn't, to me, have any much more to say about it. Like, I felt it got quite generic, actually, in the second half. And it's as soon as he started to do these kind of, like, Fatal Attraction-esque type things, and, like, he would, like, I'm going to visit your family, and I'm going to do this and this. So, this is, like, seems like quite generic. It seems like a thriller. But actually, when it seemed to be, like, an interesting character study. And I think part of the problem is, I don't think it's that good on Nicole Kidman's psychology. Like, I don't think the film ever gets to the bottom of why she wants this, or it doesn't seem interested why she wants it. But it keeps having moments where she'll say, "Oh my God, since I was a kid, I've had these dark desires." But then when you see what her actual desires are, they're not particularly dark. They're like, actually, it's not particularly kinky, is it? Like, should we say what she likes to be done?
But then what is really interesting is I don't entirely agree with that, because it's not like the acts themselves. It's that scene where she's like talking and she's like, it needs to be that something is at stake. And I think that is really fucking interesting, that it's not even about like, oh, this really provocative, we're going to show sex on screen in a way that has never been shown. But it's someone that is like, it doesn't mean something to me unless it feels like dangerous, and not in a like whips and chains, but in a, it could ruin my life.
Yeah.
Think about my credit rating.
Yeah. Exactly.
But then wouldn't having the affair with a younger man just do that anyway? Why? But then why does it have to have the kink involved then? This is the interesting thing. The kink to me is incredibly mild. It's like, she pretends to be a dog. Come on, gets fingered. So it's not that crazy. But
I mean, when you say it like that, Jim, we really are just like blowing through the mythology of a number of different films.
I mean,
look at this fucking idiot with his mustache. Look at this woman.
You know, if he offers...
Yeah, I'm getting down on the floor. Exactly, obviously.
But like,
look at Nicole Kidman pretending to be a dog. Look at that hat on Willem Dafoe. Straight through. Fuck your subtext. This looks silly.
But then what I think is really interesting about the way that the kink is filmed, and I take your point, but what I then really liked about it is that neither of them are good at it. And I kind of like that hesitance around, like there's that first bit where he's like, get on your knees, and she just looks at him and he just like bursts out laughing. Yeah. And it's so, I don't know, I just thought it felt like so real as to how this stuff is, which is often that it's in your imagination, that you're like, oh my God, I want these things. And then it happens in real life and you're like, okay.
If anyone sees the me that said they want these things, send them my way, because we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, and then there's a few scenes that actually are quite bad, I think. Like, there's the scene where she has a confrontation with Antonio Banderas, and I just feel like that scene didn't play out. It wasn't believable. It just, like, it was badly written. and then there's a weird sort of section in like, their second home upstate, which I thought was going to go in interesting. Like, gets to a point where, like, are we going to have a threesome here, or is it going to be like Pasolini, where he's going to infiltrate the whole family? But no, it didn't go anywhere that it had the potential to go. It just seemed to be quite conventional. So I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed with it. Even though I think the first half hour is really good, and I think Nicole Kidman's really good, and Harris Dickinson dancing to like
George Michael? Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's something that we don't have time to get into about Jamie being like, I'm not sure this is actually that kinky, and then just like casually referencing Pasolini and then running away.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a door that we do not want to open on what is ostensibly a family podcast.
Maybe part of that is also like, hearing all the reviews and people saying, oh my god, it's like, I just think a lot of films have explored this before, and I don't know, like I say, I just thought it got a bit 90s thriller in that the back half, and not a fun way.
How many out of 5 would you give it?
It's good. I'd say it's like 3.5 maybe.
How would you stand by your previous rating?
Yeah, I think on Letterboxd I gave it 4.5, which I rounded up. Yeah, 4.5.
Okay.
Which was 5 in the magazine.
So it's a solidly good film.
Yeah, so like a 4.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
But not by much.
No. But I really love it.
So that's Babygirl. You can choose your fighter. Who do you think you're more likely to agree with? And then proceed accordingly. Babygirl is still in cinemas now. Go and see it. Third review for the week. Another thing that we all saw for Christmas and had a lovely time with. I'm not spoiling it when I say this film's great. Film of the year. Right, so this is Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, the latest one from the Aardman team with everyone's favourite inventor, we'll get onto him later, Wallace, and his faithful, literary-loving dog, Gromit. In this one, Feathers McGraw, who all remember from The Wrong Trousers, the diamond thief / penguin, has been locked up in Chokey, but he's out and causing havoc. Meanwhile, Wallace's latest harebrained scheme is an AI-powered garden gnome, which he is touting to all and sundry, and these two things collide together in 75 minutes of movie magic. I don't think it's a spoiler. Anyone who knows me or knows the kind of things that I like would be able to guess that this film would be right up my street. But what I really enjoyed about it, Ellie, is how they really have solidified in my mind the fact that Wallace is, and always has been, a tech guy. Mm-hmm. He's a startup grind set guy who's always got some mad shitty idea that's cost him loads of money and time, but he never really loses. Yeah. He always just goes from one failed attempt at bizarre technological advancement that wouldn't really help anyone except himself. And then Gromit has to come along and make sure that he doesn't like walk through a plate glass window or accidentally get killed by his own invention. And I think that actually Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, is one of the better texts on tech person grind set. What do you think to that statement?
I totally agree, actually. I really enjoyed this. I felt like it felt like the most... Well, I mean, I was about to say, it feels like the most modern Wallace and Gromit ever, but it's not necessarily strictly modern, but rather that, like, Wallace and Gromit has always had this kind of anti-technology slant. It's a little understated, just by virtue of, like, Wallace having these incredibly elaborate contraptions that actually seem to cause more problems than they're worth. And in, like, A Close Shave and Curse of the Were-Rabbit, these are examples of the technology turning against him. But here, that kind of, like, anti-technology vibe is a lot more specific. It's, like, specifically attacking smart devices and smart homes in particular. Like, it's invoking a lot of modern technology. So it does feel like a Wallace and Gromit of a different era. And these robots that he creates, these like gnomes, these sinister gnomes, I was like, are these minions? Are these like within the Minions phylum? Is every animated franchise subject to some kind of classification of minions? Even plasticine ones. But no, they're sort of like really horrible and off-putting in a way that the Minions aren't. So I do kind of feel like, other than similar hairstyles, the Gru-Wallace comparison ends there. But like, yeah, I do feel like it is interesting because another convention that happens in virtually every Wallace and Gromit film is that Wallace does Gromit dirty. He absolutely abuses that boy. Usually it's because he's like fallen head over heels for like a female character. Sometimes it's a penguin, but he's usually just incredibly shitty and neglectful of the only one who's actually looking out for him. And what he does in this film is he uses the gnomes to automate the chores of the garden, ignorant to the fact that Gromit actually seems to enjoy gardening. So that's like a really specific thing that I think is going out to the kind of like big family audiences watching this, of like, oh, there is a kind of creative labor that is itself inherently enriching and actually using technology to automate that, though it might seem hype, actually take something away from us rather than provides us with something.
This is a film that almost literally says in the first 5 minutes, touch grass.
Yeah.
And yet, I still love it. It doesn't annoy me. Anahi, what is it about these characters and this style of animation that makes it so endearing to grown adults like ourselves?
I don't know. Yeah, what is it? I mean, I guess there's like a kind of nostalgia to it. I also just think it has such an incredible joke rate. Like, the visual gags in it are fucking astonishing, and it has such, I think, like, Aardman, Nick Park, they have, like, such a good grasp of how visual humor works. So even, I think the ones with your penguin boy are always, like, the funniest because there's such a good contrast between, like, Gromit's face, which is very, very expressive, even though he never says anything, and then Feathers McGraw that is just like these two little eyes and the rest of his face never fucking moves. And they do, really, really interesting work with like how things like contrast or complement each other. And like so many visual gags. The puns are incredible. I think that border joke where it's like Yorkshire border, keep out, Lancashire border, no, you keep out. It's like War of the Roses shit. It's so funny. And I think it was really interesting to me what you were saying about how this is like such a particularly contemporary one and sticks to so many contemporary anxieties, because I think it does something that most films or art, when they try and go contemporary, can't do, where they then make the humor really contemporary. And this was like, no, we're going to talk about like AI and anxieties around technology and update, like you say, this tech boy thing that he has from like 80s tinkering through to like 2020s like technology, but we're going to do it while still having a base level of like humor that comes from the 90s, but they're still really sharp and really clever. I had a great fucking time. I thought the penguin was kind of sexy. That's like my big kind of takeaway. As I was watching this, I was like, is he meant to be, he has like swag.
He's very capable and hardworking.
Yeah, no, but he's also just got, like, you know, when he, like, keeps saluting, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a little bit, like...
And I like, as well, it's the same thing that happens in The Wrong Trousers. They do the same thing in this one, which is that, like, as he's manoeuvring his little glove thing to free himself, he, like, sweats and has to wipe his brow. And I'm like, I like that it shows that, like, what he's doing isn't easy, you know?
Yeah.
It's not
he's
like it's
trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing about Feathers McGraw is, like, Feathers McGraw is a super villain because of kind of the thing I was saying about Love and Mercy earlier. Like, there's a power in not showing something. And, like, for long periods of this film, he's not in it. He's just away off in the distance doing something, and you know he's up to no good. And actually, what his grand plan ends up being is not the first, second, third, or even fourth thing you would guess it would be. You just know that he's doing something. You know that this little fucker's up to no good. You know that's not a chicken. But yeah, and like you say, he has that kind of swagger, and that is so much that is just in the character design and how you can do so much with so little. And it's why it's so depressing when you see, we'll maybe talk about them later, like live action adaptations, or like as live action adaptations of animated films. Like, a big part of the appeal of animated films is that you can do things with characters' faces and character design that you could never do in the real world. When I watched The Matter of Loaf and Death over Christmas in preparation for Vengeance Most Foul, you know, in real life, you can't just throw a full loaf of bread out of a car at an old lady and, like, knock her over a hedge. But in animation, you can do that as many times as you like. As many times as the animator's wrists will sustain. You can...
Better world.
Exactly. A life that we all wish we could have. And as soon as my community service is over, I'll be back out on the roads. No, that was a joke there about how I was going to throw bread at old ladies. So yeah, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, very, very good, but how good? Ellie, number out of 5.
Oh, yeah, it's like 4 stars.
Excellent.
Also 4.
I'm going to say 5. I thought it was great.
That's
It's
nice.
so good. I love it. But then I genuinely think The Wrong Trousers is one of the best films of any length that has ever been made.
This is a slightly nostalgic thing, because the first time I would have seen Wrong Trousers, I would have been tiny, because they were just always put on in school and stuff like that. Terrified me. Genuinely terrified me as a child. Because, like, it has the kind of auspices of kind of like horror film, like with big dramatic sting and stuff like that, and the music suggests so much about how sinister that fucking penguin is. But also just, like, they do interesting filmy stuff. like you hear the mechanical clunk of the trousers before you see them. Like you were saying, like it obscures them, and you just see Gromit's terrified face as like the pneumatic hiss of the trousers approaches. It's really effective. Shit me up as a kid.
Oh yeah,
So I'm all here for it.
And one final thing on the Wallace and Gromit is that the chase, there is a climactic chase scene, and it's not on the level of the Wrong Trousers chase. But it does some of the things that you would, when you think, how would you do a chase to follow that one? And you think of all the different things you would do. Like you maybe change the tempo, you change the venue. They just do them all. They do them all in a row, and it's fucking amazing. And there's an absolutely incredible visual gag that I do not want to spoil, but when you see it, you'll know it.
It's really good. I feel we should also point out here that Jamie has left, and we're recording this in slightly the wrong order, and we're just not like asking his opinion.
Yes, no, that is a good point actually.
Because I realised that we haven't asked his letterbox.
Yeah, and I realised, we didn't ask him for any.
We put him in the corner like
we
a
didn't
baby
ask
girl.
him to, yeah, we didn't want to run the risk of that happening again. I was like, you can disparage the other films all you like, but you leave my sweet boys alone. So that's Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul. It is on the BBC iPlayer. So watching it's really also ironic that it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It's Netflix and BBC. So it's BBC in the UK, and that's Netflix
Like
around the world.
Chicken Run too.
Yeah, there's like a Netflix and Aardman tie-up.
Crazy.
But they'll never take it away from the license fee payers in this country. I put good money into that fucking chicken/penguin, and I want to see, in tech bro parlance, a return on my investment. Okay, and finally for this episode, we are going to continue looking forward to 2025. There's loads of films in that past, but what about that future? That's got films in it too. So there's some things on the docket that people want to talk about, things they are excited about in the world of cinema. Anahi, you've put something on here with 2 exclamation marks, so you can maybe just like briefly reference that to kick us off.
Yeah, Mickey 17, which is the new Bong Joon-ho, which has Robert Pattinson. I've only really seen the trailer, so I can't fully summarize the plot. But from what the trailer makes me believe, I think it's like set in space. Is it? Is it set in space?
I believe he volunteers for this program where you do very dangerous jobs, and if you die, they just clone you.
Yeah, they just like remake
moon.
you. Yeah.
It's very moon.
And you get like spat
Oblivion.
out again.
Yeah.
Exactly. It seems to be kind of closer to Okja and Snowpiercer, Bong Joon-ho, than Parasite. And there are just multiple Robert Pattinsons, which I think makes a great film. So that's my pitch.
Yeah. I mean, why stop at one Robert Pattinson?
When you
the
could have
technology exists.
Apparently 17.
To have many, many more.
Yeah.
Robert Pattinson's got another film coming out in 2025, doesn't he, Jamie?
He does. It's in the new Lynne Ramsay film. I think he's an actor who has a very good taste in directors. He always just picks good collaborators. So yeah, he's it's called Die My Love. It's also got Jennifer Lawrence. I believe it's about a mother who sort of goes a bit off the deep end after having her kid, and he's, I presume, the father. So I don't know much about it. It's probably not going to get to release towards the end of the year. But yeah, Lynne Ramsay has not made a film for ages, so I'm really looking forward to see how that plays out.
And Lynne Ramsay films tend to be quite full on, and Robert Pattinson is actually quite a good actor. So this could be a good match.
I believe so.
Lynne Ramsay, Scottish.
She is.
These segues are remarkable.
Well, thank you. I'm doing my best work. No, but the reason that I said Lynne Ramsay Scottish ? And then pointed at Jamie is because Jamie has also pointed out that there's 2 big films that were shot in Scotland, not necessarily set in Scotland, but 2 big chances to try and point at bits of Edinburgh and I believe the northeast of Scotland and say, I recognise that bit in big Hollywood films from Hollywood. Jamie, what are these 2 big Hollywood films from Hollywood?
Yeah, so
to which I'm referring.
Del Toro, Guillermo del Toro, the great Guillermo del Toro. If you've been on Twitter, you must know he's been in Scotland. He's been like doing more for the Scottish Tourist Board than the Scottish Tourist Board. It's like he's been advertising no ends. So he has been filming.
There's just something about the plainness of the phrase. He's been doing more for the Scottish Tourist Board than, well, the people who normally do that job. But as you were, yeah,
yes.
He also, yeah, because this is his new Frankenstein.
Yes, he's been up and down Scotland. A lot of shoots in Edinburgh, some in Glasgow as well. And like you say, he was up in a haunted castle up in Aberdeenshire.
He saw genuine ghosts. He built a gallows on the Royal Mile, which everybody was very enthusiastic about. They were like, yay, someone's bringing back hanging. And I was like, we might have opened a door to something that we should have kept closed. And then the other one that's being made in that was made in Scotland is due out this year. It's a new one from Edgar Wright.
Yes, Edgar Wright has been shooting The Running Man in Glasgow. And supposedly it's going to be quite different from the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger Running Man, which was like about a TV show. This is going to be much more about, it's still about a TV show, but it's like set like in the real world. So like people are like, it's more like a reality TV show.
Because the 1987 Running Man is one of my favourite films of that kind. Like 80s, silly 80s mid-budget action film with a big famous person in it.
Yeah.
The tracksuits are amazing.
I mean, I'm sure Edgar Wright loves that film. Like, he's like, they're the right age. So I'm sure there's going to be like some references to like the singing ice skating man, or, you know, the buzz. Somebody might get chopped in half with a buzzsaw, maybe.
Bring back Dynamo. That's what I can say.
Yeah, I love Dynamo.
Yeah. See, Dynamo was the one that
Dynamo was
on
the
ice
opera singer. Yeah.
Dynamo was the opera singer, and then who was the one who was on ice skates?
That's Dynamo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
Who
because
shoots
there's
electricity.
the different guy with the chainsaw, because he then yeah, right. Anyway, spoilers in the preceding paragraph for the film The Running Man from 1987.
Okay. What are you talking about?
Ellie, what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that's been brought up already, but I was keeping an eye out for interesting like animated films that would be coming out, because I'm always looking for interesting animated films. I saw a trailer for something called Memoir of a Snail when I went to go see Nosferatu, which I didn't know anything about it, and it just seemed really interesting. It's a like stop motion animated kind of apparently autobiographical tragic comedy from this animated director that I never heard about, but I'm very pro stop motion animation. It looks quite creepy, gritty. It's sort of like, you know, to get at what seemed like quite like realist ideas in a very kind of imaginative way. Also, apparently, Andy Serkis is directing an animated adaptation of Animal Farm that's meant to come out in the middle of the year, which I have...
Is he playing all animals?
Well, I mean, I know for a fact that Andy Serkis runs a school for acting in stop motion, like with the ping pong balls and everything like that, because he was obviously Gollum. So
Do you mean motion capture?
Yeah, that's what I say.
You said stop motion,
I said stop
which
motion,
would be a very
That'll
different
be so
skill.
nice.
That would be-
Like teaching
So,
all the
yeah.
clay.
Cover yourself.
Guys,
He's
you
like,
gotta move.
actors, cover yourself in plasticine. And 3, 2, 1.
That's what they won't say about Wallace and Gromit, is that there's real life people under there.
Yeah. Feathers McGraw was genuinely imprisoned for 25 years before they met her.
But that just sounds interesting, and brings me to like the stuff that I'm not looking forward to, which is live action adaptations of beloved animated films, which this year now DreamWorks have started doing, because they released a trailer for How to Train Your Dragon, the live action version, which just seems exactly shot for shot remake of How to Train Your Dragon, just slightly shittier looking.
I'm going to give a message from this podcast to DreamWorks. Fuck right off.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yeah, step off. That does lead us nicely on to various... Because, you know, we like arty films and like cool stuff and like little films that could, but also we like big franchises and fun things that have some of our favourite friends from the pictures in them. Anna here, are there any films that would fit into this category that you might be interested in talking about?
I don't know.
I say, is there anything on your list?
Yeah, the new Knives Out.
Yeah, baby.
Looks kind of sick. I'm just trying to see. The thing with Knives Out is you can't really say anything about it other than the cast, and that's sort of what determines whether it's going to slap or not. But it has Josh O'Connor, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis. Where has she been? Wow. We haven't seen her for a while. Jeremy Renner, Andrew Scott, Katie Spaney, Darryl McCormack, who's so sexy, Thomas Hayden Church. Just like a really good... I don't know, there's something about Knives Out cast where it's like the most bananas collection of people who should not be in a room together, and somehow it gels and it works. So I'm very excited for that. But I know nothing else about it. Obviously Daniel Craig will be...
Benoit Blanc.
Yeah, exactly.
And also it will presumably be a mystery about some form of horrible murder that's been committed. Jamie, you got any big returning stars that you're excited to see? Which boys are back in town?
What are you referring to?
I'm referring to the new Mission Impossible film.
Oh yeah. Yes, I'm very excited to see the very last, supposedly, Mission Impossible. Will they kill Ethan at the end? Will Tom make it to the end? I don't know. It's like it's very impressive he's still going. Like I find Tom Cruise more endearing as the years go on. You know, he obviously had that crazy period and he's got some weird religious beliefs, but you know, as a film star, he really commits and he's a great screen presence, and I'm always up for watching these films. They're always really entertaining, and there's so much better than the other types of films like this, you know, like I can't think of a series which has been consistently as good as the Mission Impossible one. So yeah, I'm super looking forward to that one.
And he is a genuine ambassador for Durkino. He wants you to go to the pictures and watch him jump off a building. Ellie, have you got anything else that you're excited about? Dealer's Choice.
Yeah, other than the stuff that I mentioned. I earlier on I brought up 28 Years Later.
Yeah.
Sorry. That was another trailer that was a very good trailer and has left me quite excited for it. I mean, it might just wind up being like a shite zombie film, but like it looks kind of cool. Cillian Murphy is back in it as a zombie. That's not a spoiler. It's in the trailer.
Sometimes
did they get him?
Evidently. Yeah.
Oh.
Or he just looks
too bad.
really bad. He's just aged terribly in 28 years.
Yeah, very much a kind of like, I'm real sorry for you, but I ain't going to read all that situation. And then, of course, one thing that we should say that we are absolutely looking forward to is the return of the Filmhouse. The Edinburgh Filmhouse, which is rumoured to be, back in spring. March, I believe. Is that what they're saying?
I heard March, but that could be wrong.
They advertised for a job the other day that was like, you would start in late March.
Okay. Nice. So, cinema's back. Josh O'Connor's got loads of films coming out, obviously, but we'll cover those later in the year. Charlie XCX is in the new Greg Araki film. I'm sure we'll cover that later in the year. Paul Thomas Anderson off of Boogie Nights also has a new film coming out. There are many, if anyone who went and saw Nosferatu will be able to tell you there's lots of horrors of varying levels of...
Yeah, I hated that part of it. Like all the trailers.
The trailers for horror films that look like they could be good, bad, or indifferent. New Final Destination coming out. That ties into the thing about sequels. Probably should have brought that up earlier, but that's just my feeling as a host. Will there be a new Terrence Malick this year? I feel that's just on this document every single year. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good lay of the land. The Glasgow Film Festival programme comes out next week. First shots fired on another round of film festivals, which include the kind of films that don't get mentioned on these lists. Unless the Greg Araki with Charlie XCX is on at Glasgow Film Festival.
Oh my god, Charlie comes to Glasgow.
We can but dream. And on that note, probably that'll do for this episode of The Cine Skinny, do we think?
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anahi.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jamie.
Cheers, beer.
I've got Jamie out in time to catch his bus to go back to the office for a big meeting with somebody from the film world who I probably shouldn't mention who it is.
I mean, this makes it sound really like I'm going to meet a celebrity now.
Jamie's off to meet
Charlie XCX.
but don't tell anyone. Yes, come to our screening at the GFT on the 26th of January. We're showing Matthias and Maxime, as Jamie said, for the world premiere. And we'll be doing a discussion afterwards, and then you can come and say hi to the gang. So that's glasgowfilm.org. You can get tickets from the website or the box office. And we will be also, if you can't make it, we're going to put the discussion that follows Matthias and Maxime out as the next episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
Which is handy because we're having to work on a Sunday to go to the screening and then do the discussions. We're going to save ourselves a bit of time in the week by putting that discussion out on the internet.
Yeah, baby.
That's how things get done around here. Anyway. We'll let Jamie go and catch this bus. So bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.